This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Welcome to The Clash. This is a special episode.
This is.
Because it's not our normal episode. We're going to take our Christian worldview and allow it to clash into the culture around us. But we're going to hit the culture head on today because we are post-presidential election. I think, looking back, you and I probably were the greatest influences on the election because of the Trump episode, the Harris episode, and then the one that was so good that we never showed, the Biden episode.
Yeah, they never got to see that one.
You know, I think we filmed the episode, Biden heard about it, he dropped out.
Yep,
It was going to be so devastating to him. So, I mean, but here we are, post-election. Now, if you have been living under a rock, you're not aware of the fact that Bill Clinton was just elected president of the United States. No, that's different. No, that's not this election. That's a different election.
It was Donald J. Trump.
Yes. Yeah. So the Trump train has left the station and has rolled big time across America in a landslide victory, which I don't think most people expected, although the signs were all there. And, you know, we really did cover the election coming up to it. I think we did it in a pretty honest way and did our best to kind of talk about the pros and cons of each candidate. But, but now it is over. We're going to take and dissect the election just a little bit because, again, America has changed.
Yeah.
This election has proven that. And so over the next few minutes, after we take a break, we're going to come back and I'm going to be question asker. You're going to be pundit. We'll see what we can come up with and see if we can come up with any helpful hints for those who have been on the losing side of this election cycle and need some help and encouragement. Yeah. That's what we're going to do.
My spiritual gift is brutal honesty.
Yeah.
So they're going to rely more on you for help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. So don't go anywhere. And you say, well, look, I am over the election. I'm over politics.
And commercials.
Yeah, stick with us. Stick with us for about a half hour. You're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
We'll be back. Chris, I was just sitting around wishing I had something good to read during the Christmas season. You got any suggestions for me?
I have. It's called Harold's Heavenly Christmas.
Wow.
And it's a book that I wrote, and yeah, I'm still hoping that it's going to be on Movie of the Week, and script's already been written for it. So just a feel-good, great book. If you like to watch those Christmas movies, you will love Harold's Heavenly Christmas.
Okay.
It's about a firefighter who dies and becomes. If you like It's a Wonderful Life, you know, Harold is the new Clarence.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
And why don't you take that one too? Harold's Heavenly Christmas, and enhance your Christmas holiday reading. Welcome back. We are dissecting the election that has been, where Donald J. Trump has defeated Kamala Harris and will be inaugurated as President of the United States right after the first of the year, 2025.
Right.
Tell you what, Chris, I have been listening to so much crying and complaining from the progressive left and so many media pundits and newscasters. And there's just a lot of crying in politics anymore.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And I told you my spiritual gift is brutal honesty, and I want to just say, get over it. Yeah. But I'm not going to say that. But, Jeff, isn't it amazing that they have said for, a year that Donald Trump was fascist, he was racist, he was Hitler, he's a threat to democracy. Biden called him a danger. And then all of a sudden, when the election's over and Kamala made her, speech when she conceded, and she said, it's going to be okay. We'll get over it, and we're not going to quit fighting, and all. And then Biden makes his little thing from the Rose Garden, and he basically says the same thing. Hey, we'll get over this. We'll live another day. We're going. So all of that stuff that they were saying about him, they didn't say in those conceding comments.
Yeah.
And that has caused a lot of people to be confused.
It does, well, because basically they were either lying
Yeah.
or they were just saying it to deceive people to get votes, because those are some pretty strong statements to make, right?
Yeah.
And I think we said in one of those other previous episodes we did on politics, we tend to accept lying from our politicians, and we tend to expect it. I think this time in America, there were a good number of people who said, you know what, I'm not going to believe lies anymore.
Yep.
And
evidently, there were quite a few that didn't believe them.
Yeah, and so as we dissect it, I really want to help the Democratic Party. I want to be helpful to them. And I think the first thing, you just tapped on it, that they need to understand is that it's not okay to lie in politics. Now, again, in fairness, Republicans, independents, everybody lies. That is a part of politics. But at least this time, on some big issues and some big thoughts and concepts, America didn't buy it. And that was awesome.
No, they didn't buy it. And, I think one of the big reasons, if there's one thing this election should do, it should make all the people that watch mainstream media, the mainstream news, CBS, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, it should make people that watch that a little angry, because they're not being honest with you. Yeah. The majority of people got their news from podcasts, from cable, from alternative news sources, instead of the quote-unquote mainstream media. And that should send a shocking message to the mainstream media that they, it might be a good idea to change the way they do things.
Yeah, it really should. And of course, the biggest contributor to honesty in this thing was Abundant TV.
Yeah.
You and I.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah,
our show.
We had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I'm sure we did. And I also think, as I kind of look back and listen, I think in so many different ways, though, I think the Democratic Party somehow missed the real issues that Americans were dealing with.
Right.
Let's talk about the economy.
Right.
70% of Americans
over 70
believe
right
that the economics of Bidenomics, the economy, the inflation, they felt like America was going the wrong direction.
Right.
And for some reason,
they didn't talk about that.
They didn't want to talk about it, and the approach was, it's not as bad as you think.
Right.
You don't know what we know.
Right.
And trust us, we have a plan to fix it. Well, the problem with that is they had 4 years to break it.
Right.
And so, a little self-reflection would say, shouldn't we have come up with a different, better plan? And I haven't heard that yet post-election, that there's any other plan that they've got that they could have offered. No one wants to own or take responsibility for that. And I think that's tragic.
Nope, they didn't have any of that to offer. The big thing in America with people, the big thing was the economy and our southern border.
Yeah,
those were the two big issues. Abortion was way down there.
It was.
It was way down there. But what did they camp out on?
Abortion, and then Trump being a fascist.
And transgender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things that people really didn't care about.
Yeah.
But, evidently Trump did his homework, and he knew what people, were feeling. Yeah. He knew, they interviewed enough people and talked to enough people to know what people really had on their minds and what was really a concern for them and our nation.
Yeah.
And the Democrats totally missed it.
So as we dissect it, if we're going to help the Democratic Party do better in the next election cycle, at the end of the day, you've got to come up with a better economic plan. And your economic plan can't be that all the other side wants to do is give tax cuts to billionaires. That's not it.
No.
Your economic plan needs to be a solid economic plan that helps everybody across the board. And they didn't have one.
Yep.
Another thing I noticed this time, there's changing demographics. I mean, pools of voters that used to vote in one direction,
Right.
for the Democratic Party,
Right.
they seem to swing back, not to a majority, but high percentages
Oh, high percentage.
that swung back toward
Right.
Donald Trump.
Right.
Well, I mean, why do you think that took place?
He went to them and made his plea to those demographics. With the Hispanics, I think it's quite an insult the way the Democrats looked at the Hispanics.
Yeah.
Like they were, low class, cleaning bathrooms and cleaning windows and, doing, menial jobs. And I think they took quite offense to that. And also, these are people who did it the right way. They came in legally, went through that, big episode of becoming a naturalized citizen into our country. And it was an insult to them that all that work that they put into it, and then some people just coming across and not having to go through any of that. Yeah. And then getting all the benefits that they were being given, credit cards and phones and hotel rooms and things like that. It upset that demographic. Black men were upset with some of the things that were said to the black population.
They were shamed by former President Obama.
Right.
His wife, Michelle Obama.
They didn't take that very well.
No, they did not. I mean, it was a very, very, I don't want to say it was a dumb strategy, but it didn't work.
Right.
So I guess it is dumb. Right?
Yeah, and when you look at the demographics of who voted for the Democrats, over 40%, I think, had no religious beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 40%. And the rich population, there were more rich people that voted for the Democrats than voted for the Republicans.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. So the conclusion was, as much as you heard something else, that the primary voter that went the Democratic direction were wealthier Americans, non-religious, non-God-fearing Americans, and they lost what were just pockets of voters that they just had always assumed they would have
And took for granted.
Took for granted.
Yeah.
And so again, our second piece of advice would be, don't take the potential voters that are out there for granted.
Right.
You've got to have something to offer them, and you can't just expect them to vote for you because they don't owe you their vote.
Right.
You have to earn that vote. Now, I tell you what, we're really going to help the Democratic Party here. Now, maybe we don't want to do that depending on who your affiliation is, but we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. We're going to take an honest look at dissecting this thing, but we'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What are you doing Christmas Eve?
I'm glad you asked. And, our folks here could join us. If you are in the Central Florida area, join us here at the Church at 434 in Winter Springs at 7 o'clock, Christmas Eve night for a candlelight service. It's outside under the stars. And if you can't be with us, go to touchandchange.net or the Church at 434 app, or you can find us on Facebook. And we're streaming live, and we would love to have you join us from 7 to 8 o'clock. We'll see you on Christmas Eve. Hey there, stop whatever you're doing right now. Get your phone out and go ahead and aim it right here at the screen at the QR code right in front of you. Because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, I'm having such a great time watching The Clash, but there's been some episodes that I've missed. Well, if you take a picture of that QR code and follow it to the website, you're going to discover all the episodes of The Clash that you might have missed on a channel called The Church at 434 in Motion. 434 in Motion has that and a lot of other resources, and we would love for you to catch back up on what you've missed. Every day there's brand new programming that comes out, and we want you to be a part of it. Now, hey, relax, it doesn't cost you a dime. It costs you a little bit of time, but it's well worth it because it's time well spent. Actually, it's almost like you're making money at it. So use the QR code, come find us, see the episodes of The Clash that you missed, and let's get back to the show. Hi, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your break. We are dissecting the presidential election. We're helping the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
What went wrong for them? And so as we're talking about it, let's think about the way that they ran the two campaigns. Because two very distinct ways of running campaigns. The Harris campaign seemed to focus on how bad Trump was. That was their approach. Trump is bad, and we're better than that. Trump did not run that kind of campaign. His campaign was a little bit more, it was very Trumpish. I mean, he'd say anything that came into his head, but he always got back around to talking about what he was going to do.
Right.
Do you think that played into people's response when it came to voting day? I mean, how did that resonate with people?
Yeah, I think that did, but Harris just got off to a bad start. You had Biden that went through the primary process, got 14 million votes. He's campaigning. And people, I think it's the Republicans are starting to say, he's cognitively challenged. And then they showed, reasons for saying that. He couldn't find his way off of a stage, and one of them with Obama leading him off the stage and stuff like that. And then, he has the debate with Trump. And then after that,
disaster.
Which was a disaster, and they said, we've got to do something. And I think it was Pelosi that kind of led the charge on that. And I really think they threatened him too. Right? They threatened him with the 25th Amendment that, this is the right thing to do, to step down. And if you don't do the right thing, we're going to do this. Because you know as well as I do, he's saying, hey, I'm in this.
Yeah,
I'm in this. I'm not getting out. The day before he got out, he said, I'm in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that changed. So I believe there was some threats on that. So Harris comes in, never having received a vote in a primary. They didn't go through any kind of thing at the convention or whatever. She was just named by Biden as the successor, and expected everybody to get behind that.
Yeah, I was always waiting for someone to start challenging the legality of that.
Yeah,
because that was acclamation by the Democratic National Committee that put her on the ballot. So, I mean, it basically just flushed away the entire primary process. And again, but no one challenged it legally, so I'm assuming maybe it must be legal somehow. Maybe it's being, but I mean, as a person who watches politics, that was very strange in the voting cycle. The other thing I thought was strange about that too, which isn't really her misstep, but when RFK Jr. was trying to get his name off the ballot in some states, and they said you can't do that legally.
All right.
Well, but they took Biden's name off the ballot legally. And replaced him with someone else. So why could one person take their name off so easily, and another person not be able to take his name off?
Why do you think, Jeff?
Well, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here, but I think that there was a little bit of cooking behind the scenes in the kitchen going on, or an attempt to.
Right.
But I think that was a misstep. What about her long gap before she ever sat down with anybody to do an interview?
Yeah.
That was a strategy, right?
It wasn't a very good strategy.
Well, I didn't say it was good. Obviously it wasn't, but I mean, that was a strategy though, right?
Yeah. And, she did one interview with Brett Baer.
It was tough.
That was the one that I would call an interview. She did some others that they said were interviews, but they really weren't that much of an interview. So she just basically was doing stump speeches and doing the same speech over and over and over again. And all of those speeches had Donald Trump's name in it about 24 times. I've even heard somebody take the speech she made, and they just said, every time she mentioned his name, that's what they ran, and it was like Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. So that's what she was running on. And you're right. Trump was, he's saying, hey, I'm going to secure the border. I'm going to drill, baby, drill. You remember when gas was $2 a gallon? Would you like to have that back? And, the economy, your 401ks and all of that stuff. Having, he didn't start any wars when he was president. And all these people that get upset and call him, Hitler and everything, we do have 4 years of looking at his administration. And he never became Hitler in those 4 years. So, but, he was saying what he was going to do and what he plans to do. And even when she was, asked some tough questions, she just gave word salad answers. And
and the problem, and I think one of the missteps in that campaign is that she never had anybody, or she never listened to anybody, or there was just nobody there.
Right.
Trump is the king of the soundbite.
Mm-hmm.
When you say
snapshots and soundbites,
drill, baby, drill, right? Everybody knows what that means. Mm-hmm. We're going to build that wall.
Right.
Everybody knows what that is, right? And then after he got shot, it's fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody knows those sound bites. She had nothing.
She didn't have any sound bites.
So somebody needed to give her some sound bites, because again, while Trump didn't always say something new, but what he was saying resonated and people remembered it was the stuff of T-shirts.
Right.
That's why we have Trump shops out there, and there were never any Harris shops, right? Trump can sell merchandise. Harris cannot. Yeah. But the other thing too, to cut you off, do you think that for Trump, those long forms, new media interviews, the Joe Rogan, the Elon Musk conversations, those hour-long, 2-hour-long conversations where they were just filming it and they'd go out in the form of podcast and videocast, that's part of demographics again. But that is really where people really started dialing in and listening and drilling down on what the guy said. And he could do that. He could go on Gutfeld, he could go on Joe Rogan's show, and he could survive both.
Right.
And do very, very well at it and come across as likable, but also with substance. Right.
Right. I was just that's what I was about to say.
Oh, okay.
Is that no. He did the shows that the majority of the younger folks listen to. Joe Rogan, he's got 15 million listeners, and I listened to that entire podcast. It was 3 hours and 12 minutes. Yeah. But then not only him, but Vance did 3 hours and 20 minutes with Rogan.
He did.
And then Elon Musk did almost 3 hours with Joe Rogan. And Elon Musk was actually the one that said something that tripped a nerve in Joe Rogan, where it was that evening after the Elon Musk interview that evening he endorsed Trump.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about missteps in campaigns, right? I think the choice of vice presidential candidates was a lot bigger than anyone's even talking about now.
Yeah.
Because, Tim Walz or J.D. Vance, and I will be honest with you. I didn't know a whole lot about either one of them, but as soon as they hit the national stage, you start finding out and doing a deep dive.
Right.
And
quite a difference.
Whoa, a huge difference. And Walz then kind of went into Kamala Harris mode, where you never knew what the guy stood for, and it's not like he was going to be, just average Joe kind of, I'm just a good old guy, where nothing about his career has said that. And then you got J.D. Vance, who, the guy is well spoken, he's sharp, he's articulate, he's got writer, he's come from a really tough background, but he's also got, that military background. I was stunned at the difference, the contrast in the two, because Vance would go against anybody in the media.
All right, yeah.
And I know these people when they were signing up to interview him. I think for the most part, because of the ego, I know they were thinking, we're going to nail this guy.
Didn't work out.
It never worked out. Not one time did it work out. They never pinned this guy against the wall. As a matter of fact, he came off the came off the ropes every time with that, with again, great soundbite. Are you listening to yourself?
Yeah, he came off the top rope with an elbow.
Yeah, I mean, just,
Yeah.
man, that's just incredible stuff. Crazy stuff. Campaign missteps. For our advice for the Democratic National Committee is, get yourself some better candidates, not just at the top of the ticket, but the second seat in the ticket. And figure out how to communicate in a way that's going to resonate and find an audience. Because apparently, propping up Bruce Springsteen, Julia Roberts, and George Clooney, that's not good enough.
No. And even, it just kind of hurt my feelings that Will Ferrell, did that expletive-laced rant about voting for Kamala. And I don't even know if I want to watch Elf again this year. Yeah.
He needs to wash his mouth out with soap. If Buddy the Elf needs to wash his mouth out with soap and then syrup and then spaghetti. All right, we've given some very helpful hints to this point.
Yep.
We're going to wrap this thing up right after one more break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
Hey, Jeff, Christmas is coming at us quicker than we can really fathom right now. I mean, you got to go out, you got to buy gifts, you got to do all this Christmas stuff. You got any good suggestions for a good Christmas gift for someone?
I do. I would suggest strongly that you would get your copy of Unlocking the Kingdom. I wrote that book years ago, but it has a new life to it because now the audiobook is available, or it will be, right around Thanksgiving.
Whoa.
And we're excited about that. Jessica Gardner, who you've seen probably on NCIS, or Talking to the Geico Lizard, is the narrator who brings all the voices to life. And it is a 13-hour roller coaster ride in the Disney theme parks. And so pick that up. It's available on Audible from Amazon. It's called Unlocking the Kingdom, and it helps put my kids through school. Welcome back. We have been looking at the election. But no matter whether you like the candidate that won or lost, the great news is the next day the sun came out. We're still doing the show. You're watching the show. And not a whole lot has changed. And not a whole lot will change. And that's the beauty of the American electoral system. Great impact, but our lives are going to go on. And then we have to live in that world. I equated it to kind of like the children of Israel, right? I mean, God gives us free will, and I think God has given the American people a free will of what you want to choose. What kind of leader do you want? I think Trump's surviving assassination attempts was a pretty good indicator that Jesus wanted us to have an election. I think we said that at some point. We did. And America seemed to respond. And so for whatever reason, God has chosen to give America a season under a Trump presidency where we can have the opportunity to reestablish who we are in this world and the kind of people we're going to be. So if you're a follower, take heart. You have an opportunity to impact and do ministry. That's why we would share how the Democratic Party can do it better. Because if they would do the things we said, my gosh, we would have a better election and better choices in candidates. And so we're just being as helpful as we can. But we're glad that you joined us. And we're sure it's going to be a wild and woolly year because now there's a Trump presidency coming. So I'm sure we're going to cover some topics along the way that will be a lot of fun to kind of tackle.
I'm sure.
But until next time, what advice do you have for our folks who have just survived a tough election season?
Just to know that God is still on the throne and don't tap out.